Welcome back to the Grow Like a Mother podcast. Today is super fun because I have Mathana here with me, and she is someone that I met recently at a book signing event here in Ottawa. And she came up to the table and introduced herself. We got talking, and it turns out she's a coach too. So, of course, I had to have her on the show. Mathana is a wife and a mother and an author. She's a spiritual mindset coach. She's triumphed over many life struggles like escaping a war-torn country, illnesses, vehicle accidents, relationship issues, and self-limiting beliefs through her own journey of self-discovery and spiritual awakening. In December 2021, she wrote and published her first book called Daughter of the King to encourage, motivate, and guide women to overcome their struggles in life by tapping into the source of power that created us all. Right now, Mathana coaches women on empowering their spiritual mindsets, and she's dedicated to specializing in unlocking their inner potential, cultivating self-awareness, and living an authentically aligned life with their deepest values and aspirations. She provides practical tools and strategies to help women cultivate a positive mindset, release fears and doubts, and embrace their unique gifts and talents. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jill. I'm so honored and pleased to meet you. And what a coincidence that we met, at Indigo. And I was just there like when I released my book. And that's why I came up to your booth when I saw you. I know how that feeling is to be there to promote your book. So thank you so much for having me on the show.
It's my pleasure, and I'm so glad you came up. It's really fun to meet other authors, other coaches who are talking about the same things. As I was reading your bio, I'm like, we're so aligned in so many different things that we're teaching. I love it because I don't know your story. I'd love if you could take us back, sort of as far as it makes sense, to give us some scope on how you got to what you do today.
Yes, so it is a long story, and most of it is in my book, which is why I wrote the book to encourage women. So let's start with moving from countries. I was just 12 years old, and of course, due to the war, my parents decided that we should move because of safety reasons. And so we moved to North America, and we came to Canada for a good life. And my parents, of course, wanted a better future for their children, myself and my brother. But after, I mean, it was wonderful at the beginning, coming to a new country, lots of opportunities. There's peace. You can concentrate on your, life goals and all of that without worrying about your safety, without worrying about bombs falling on your, children's school or workplaces. And so it was wonderful at first. And then there were issues with my parents. They started having relationship issues. And so my parents got divorced when I was 16. So it was tragic. I'm not like in my background, it's not normal for couples to get divorced. And so it was very difficult for me as a teenager to process that because I didn't see anyone around me going through that. And so it was a new territory for me, and my mom, being a single mom, it was a difficult decision for her as well. But she had to do it for the sake of her mental health, as well as our mental health, like myself and my brother. So once that got processed and done through, I was lost for answers. I was wondering, why did this happen? You start questioning yourself, would something have been different? If maybe my mom had done something, differently, or if we as a family had done something differently. So there were all these questions in my mind, and I was going through this dark period being a teen, and not having that father figure in my life, was difficult for me. And so that validation, that self-awareness, all of that started to come into play at that point, where you're questioning all these things, and wondering, if you're worth, your self-worth, what it is, what your identity is, and all of that. So as we were going through that. My mom had her own share of mental, crises, going through all of that as a single mom and not having anyone to help her through that process because she didn't know anyone that was in her circle that was going through that as well. So she was the first one having to deal with it. And for me, so we were all just the three of us at that point, and we had a family friend of ours that invited us to go to church. So we were not born Christians. We're from a Hindu background. We were not born Christians. And this family, friends of ours, we know for a long, long time, invited us to go to church one day. And they said, why don't you come check out this church with us? Since you're not in a good place right now, anyway, spiritually or mentally, just check it out. And so we did. And I remember that first day I stepped into that church, I just felt this sense of peace and overwhelming love and joy and that energy that I felt. And I wanted more of it. So that day, of course, when you're a new person coming into church, they give you a Bible and they ask you to go home and read it on your own and get to know what Christianity is all about. So I did that. I was curious. I was hungry for, knowledge. I was hungry to learn who this God is. Um, and so I did start reading and I fell in love with Jesus. Like I just could not believe the things that he has done, just to get our attention, just to get us back into his kingdom, and it's just amazing to me um, how he goes about revealing himself to people in different situations. So he's always there, but he's waiting for you to reach out. And that's the beauty of this relationship is that there's no forcing, there's no forced, um, what do you call, sort of forced nature in this. It's more you're seeking for answers. You're looking for that peace and love and joy, which path you should take, which journey should you start. And then when you really are seeking that with your whole heart, that's when he reaches out to you. And it's through your friend, or it could be through a family member. And so if you're open-minded and willing to try things, you will definitely, be able to reach that destination you're looking to reach. And so that's where our whole lives turned around since that day. Like, it took a while, like for my mom, because she was a little hesitant about changing religions because of course she was older and, not realizing that it's not a religion, but a relationship with your creator. And so it was hard for her to understand that aspect. So after many years of praying for her, she too accepted Christ, and we both got baptized and started serving the Lord. And so it's just been a wonderful journey ever since. I'm not saying that it was perfect. I have my own, trials. I've had trials with illnesses. I've had, like I mentioned, accidents that could have taken my life. But, miraculously, I'm still here today. And I know there's a purpose in my life because I've been saved so many times from those tragedies, near-death experiences as well. And so I know that there is this higher power that is looking out for us and loves us so much. But it's only when we open up our hearts and really want to get to know what that power is when that power can reach out to you. And so I would say to anyone that's going through any trials at the moment, just be open-minded, just open your heart, seek the truth, and you will find it, as he says. And my book, the reason I wrote that book is the verse in the Bible that I read, 2 Corinthians 6:18. It says, I'm a daughter of the King who is not moved by the world, for my God is with me and goes before me. I do not fear because I am his. And so today, I do not fear for anything. I do not even fear death. That's how strong my faith is, that I know where I'm going to be going if I ever, you know, come to face with the end. So I'm not fearful of any illness. I'm not fearful of any disease, um, any anything happening. And I have two, yeah, kids. My daughter is 20, going to be 20 this May. My son is 17. And as a mom, you're always worried for them too, right? There's that when they leave the house, you're wondering, are they safe? Are they okay? Will they return home safely? So all of these things are in the back of your mind, but because I have Christ in my life now, I don't worry about that because I know that the minute they leave the house and not in my sight, they're always in his sight. And he's omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. And so there's no doubt in my mind that they will be taken care of, that nothing will happen to them. And it's also, I would say, reading scripture and building that strength because there's promises that God has given in the Bible for each and every one of us. But if we don't know those promises, we can't practice or kind of understand what God is saying to us. So knowing that the truth and knowing your identity, because he's already given us an identity that's in him. We are made in his image and we are, capable, more than able to do all the things that even he did when he was here on earth, as Jesus. And so it's it's just incredible when you have that mindset and when you have that positivity in your life. Everything looks achievable. Everything is becomes lighter in your life, and you're not carrying that weight on your shoulders by yourself because you know there's someone else that can carry that weight for you. And of course, like I've had my weak moments, I've had my doubts, I've had those moments where I question God, why? Why does this have to happen? Why do I have to walk through this? And he always says there's a plan, there's a reason. If you didn't, like I always go back to this particular example that pastors always use. They say a diamond isn't formed easily, right? It goes through refinement. It has to go through fire almost. So in the same way, if you are to become that beautiful diamond, you have to walk through certain situations. You have to walk through certain struggles in your life. And it's only refining you and making you a better person. And at the end of your journey, you're going to look back and say, I understand why now. And so this is what I've understood so far in my life. In 2 years, I'll be 50, but and I think that'll be my turning point as to understanding, my goodness, all that's happened in my 20s and 30s and 40s. I understand now. And it's almost like this light bulb went on, and you have this moment where you realize all those petty things that you know, fought over or cried over, um, they're not really, the biggest, what do you call they're not big in the picture of God. May seem big to us, but it's minuscule in his eyes. And so what we need to remember is God is bigger than anything that we're facing. And I also love this particular saying where they say, look at the mountain and tell how big your God is instead of telling your problem how big your problem is. Look at, the problem and say how big your God is. And that's how I've looked at my life now. Whenever I encounter any problem, I say, my God is bigger than this problem. And so right away, I feel that sense of relief. I know that it's out of my control. There's only so much I can control in life. Even, going to work, coming home. I work full time and I drive about 40 minutes to get to work. And going on the highway and coming back home, you just never know. Like life is so unpredictable. And so even coming back home every day and you have peace, you didn't have a bad day. You have food, you have shelter, you have clothing, you have all of the basic needs. that's all that matters. And your loved ones are safe, that's all that matters at the end of the day. So sometimes we tend to focus so much on the meaningless things, but we forget that the Lord has surrounded with beautiful things all around us. But we just fail to notice that because it's already given to us and we're not fighting for it. Sometimes we take that for granted.
Hmm.
And that's what I've realized. I've lately been admiring sunsets, sunrises, seeing birds, fly in the sky, or hearing them in springtime and summer, or hearing the water. We have a river that's beside our home, and just walking down that path and listening to the water flow. So, God has provided us with all the beautiful things that we need for a peaceful life, but we tend to run after sometimes the wrong things. And that tends to get us off that path of peace. And so I believe that when we align ourselves with the words and the thoughts and the promises that He has given us, we can definitely live that peaceful life. And we can learn a lot from each other as well. So surround yourself with people that believe, in the positive things, who encourage you, your circle of friends, your circle of family members. It's very important, I think. Um, at the end of the day, you are who you surround yourself with. So it is important. And I've always said this to my children too. Like I've always said, you know, make sure you're surrounding yourself with people that encourage you and give you those positive feedback, so that you do feel encouraged at the end of the day or motivated. And do the same for others. It's not just about receiving, but giving back as well. Um, so yeah, in my coaching, I try to encourage clients as well, because whatever they're walking through, they may feel like it's hopeless, they may feel like there's no help, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel always. But you should be willing to do the work as well, right? If we don't ask for help, no one's coming to get you out of, that pit. You have to find help first. Take care of yourself first so that you can take care of others as well. Um, like they always say, I mean, we hear this all the time, in the plane, they instruct you, put your mask on first so that you can take care of yourself and then take care of the people around you. So yeah, if you are, you know, uh, tired, stressed, uh, do what needs, what makes you feel comfortable, what makes you feel happy. Because at the end of the day, when your soul and your body feels peace, you're able to pass that energy on to others as well. Because when you're anxious and when you're angry or frustrated, you're operating at a different energy level. And that's not a healthy energy level. And you're not being helpful to others around you as well. So it's important to sort of ground yourself, get yourself in that state of stability, and then you can help others as well. So my book was it's written as a journal just because I wanted people to also be able to answer some questions in the book that'll help you while you're reading the book. So yeah, so that's my story, and I'm here today to live my purpose, my God-given purpose. And yeah, I just want to encourage every woman that's out there that you're not alone. We're all walking through something that we feel like we don't have control over, but there is a source of power that has full control, and we should learn to give up some of our control to him, and we'll feel much lighter in spirit and mind and body.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. That's so beautiful. I'm curious when women work with you in your one-to-one coaching, what kind of tools do you give them? Like, are there one or two different examples you could give the listeners today that they could start to make some real change and connection in their life today? Um, that's something that you really find helpful?
So even in my own example, I can say journaling is one of the tools I use. Journaling is very helpful because you're just, there's a lot of thoughts going through your mind. There's a lot of emotions in your heart. And so when you write things down, you're actually seeing them on paper and you're realizing what it is that you're going through, what it is that you're fighting with. And so when you journal, you're able to sort of step back and look at it from a different perspective instead of internalizing everything and keeping it suppressed. So journaling is one way. And I also say have an accountability partner as well. Like have someone that can check up on you and sort of remind you and ask you how it's going. So I do provide some steps on what they can do in order to progress in the right direction. And the accountability partner can help them also make sure that they're following those steps and not going back in the opposite direction. So those are some of the tools. There are others as well, but it depends on the individual as well, because some people are who love to see and learn, like visual learners, and then some are like listening. They love listening to podcasts or listening to a book and so forth. So it depends on the person and what their learning style is.
Hmm.
And I would suggest whatever is according to what they're comfortable doing.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the beautiful thing about coaching, is being able
yeah,
to assess and really see
that's
from an
right.
outside perspective and give tools that are going to be specifically useful for the person in front of you so that they can take that action that you were talking about earlier to really make some change in their life. So that's really powerful. Yeah.
Thank you. I love
Um,
your new book too. Happy, healthy, wealthy, and wise. It's a
thank you.
great. I have to get my own copy. I'm waiting to do that.
Well, I want to know what was your experience like writing your book? Because I know that for me, it was like several years of like battling myself and trying to be honest and vulnerable and not really knowing how to put it all together in the right way that would really serve the best. And what was your experience with that as an author?
Same thing. Like I've always wanted to write this book about my life, and I didn't know when to do it. So when COVID happened and we all had to work from home, I said to myself, my goodness, I have a lot of time since I'm not commuting back and forth to work. I have a lot of time. Let me start my book. So I started writing the book, and each day I would have ideas that come through. So I jot down a draft. And then, that happened for about a year. And at the end of the year is when I sort of look back at what I had written, and I thought, okay, now let me put it together in a book format. So it took me some time. It took me a year and a half almost.
Mhm.
So the initial was just getting started on. And I said, each day I'm just going to write a paragraph. I'm not going to sit there and try to finish a chapter, but I'm going to write as my whatever comes into my heart. And I prayed about it too before I started. And I said, Lord, you lead me. Uh, your spirit can lead me to write the words that you want me to write in this book that's going to encourage whoever is reading this book. And that's how I started. And it was a beautiful journey, actually. And I didn't realize when I was writing the book so much of the emotion that came out while I was writing the book. So it is also self-medicating, I would say, to
Yeah.
write a book because you don't realize what the emotions that you keep suppressed or the thoughts that you haven't really processed. All of that comes out when you write a book. I don't know
Yeah.
if it was the same for you, but
It was, and it actually brings me back to what you said earlier about journaling. It's the exact same experience, whether you're writing a book to publish or whether you're just writing in your own journal, right? Um, and I think the same can actually be said for just speaking out loud. Like I've never been great at journaling, but I'm really good about speaking out loud what I would have written in a journal. I don't have a word for that practice, but I do it every day. And so I'm like journaling verbally. But the action of just brain dumping and seeing what comes through and allowing yourself to go through the process, not having any like expectations of what's going to come through, you get the most beautiful gems that way. It's crazy.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's why I said I'll start with a paragraph each day because
Smart.
otherwise you're just you're trying to come up with
Hmm. That's right.
content to write, but when it flows from your heart, I think it comes naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where can people find your book?
It's available on Amazon as a KDP, like a digital version, as well as a hard copy. So right now, just on Amazon. Yes.
Amazing. Well, that's fantastic because we have listeners all over the world and Amazon is the place to go. I feel like it's the it's the place for books. I love that so much. I mean, it's the place
I
for
know.
everything. I'm an Amazon fan, I gotta say. I know a lot of people aren't, and I also love supporting small local business. Just everything. But yeah, Amazon is a fantastic place for books. So, listeners, I encourage you to go grab Mathana's book. I'm going to have it linked in the show notes so it's easy access. And where can people reach out and connect with you on Instagram or Facebook if they want to continue the conversation?
Yes. So on Instagram, my Instagram title is God is Grace. So God dot is dot grace. So you can look up God is Grace on Instagram, and that would be my Instagram page. And on Facebook, it's my name, Mathana Senthil Nathan. So if you put my full name, you'll see it. And by the way, for the book as well on Amazon, there are other books called Daughter of the King. I realized after publishing. So if you are looking for my book, please put my name, Daughter of the King by Mathana, Senthil Nathan, and then you'll find the book, the right book.
And yes, we'll make sure that the link, just click the link in the show notes. That'll be the best place, or connect with
Yes.
Mathana on Instagram and she can direct you there as well. We'll make sure that that you're not led astray, that you get the real goods. I love that. Thank
Yeah. And
you.
I'm also going to be, sorry, starting a
Yeah,
group on Facebook for women.
fun.
So that will be coming out soon. I haven't done that yet, but I hope to start a group where we can have healthy conversations on spiritual life and how to uplift each other and encourage each other through spirituality.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you for the work that you're doing in the world. It is so needed, and I appreciate you being here so very much.
Thank you for this opportunity. Have a wonderful day.
You too.